Hi, my name is Isa Valdez, and welcome to Evolve the podcast. Each week, I will give you tips and tricks on how you can start a business, make it successful, and keep it going. Listen to my journey as I become a self-made entrepreneur at 36 and counting. Hi, my name is Isa Valdez, and I've decided to do a podcast to talk about being an entrepreneur at age 36 and starting my first business at age 36. I didn't realize that I was 36 starting a business until I turned 48. And I remember starting the business and thinking, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm just going to go ahead and do everything that I can to bring this vision to life, right? And it all happened for me. I was home. I got back from college. I have a degree in accounting. In fact, I like to brag about having a bachelor's of science degree in accounting. I came back from college and I could not find a job to save my life, right? And I often credit my cousin. He was the then managing partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he called me in for an interview, and I failed and tanked the interview, people. I failed the interview at one of the top 5 accounting firms at that time, right? And I just didn't know what direction that I wanted to go in. But I know that I had this innate ability, this innate feeling in me that I was not supposed to work for someone. So what do? I went to college at age 32. I was in my 30s. I went to college in my 30s, and I got a degree in my 30s. I remember even talking to my biology teacher at the time, and he said, I want you to change your major. He said, you're doing so well in biology and science. I was getting A's. I was getting all A's. And he said, would you change your major to medicine? And I said, no way am I going to do that. That meant that I was going to have to spend another 5 to 6 more years in school. And I did not want to do it. I kept telling myself, I have something to do. And going to college for medicine meant that I was going to spend many more years in school, and I didn't want to do that. After all, I had brought my son from the Bahamas to the United States. In fact, I brought my son and my brother to live with me from the Bahamas, and I raised them while I was in college, right? And so when I got home from college, I had to send my son ahead of me, but I got home and I couldn't find a job. But I knew that I had to come home because things were just not going right. Every turn, things were just not going right. It was just enough, but it just wasn't getting beyond the next level. And I just knew that I had to go home. I had to correct some things, whatever that was in me that felt that I had to go home. So I sent my son ahead of me, and he went to stay with some friends of mine for about 6 months until I was finished school. I packed up my apartment. I sent my son ahead, and then I sent my brother, and then I came home. And I did, multiple jobs. I remember I was dating this guy at the time, and he was like, you need to find a job. And I went and I applied to the hotel. At the time, a friend of mine was in charge of the accounting department, and he offered me a job. It was a slap in the face, but neither here nor there. I was offered the job. I had all of my documentation. All I had to do was sign it, and I couldn't shake the feeling on the inside of me that I was not supposed to work for anyone. I just couldn't shake it. And I had left all of my other jobs because I was a manager at a restaurant. I was a project manager at a construction site. I was building a 10-plex for a client. And I just knew, that I was not supposed to be on a conventional job, 9 to 5. And I believe that all of the footsteps that I took was for me to come to the moment of being an entrepreneur and running my own business. I was the general manager of a restaurant, and I remember I was standing in the bar area, and this guy walked up to me and he said, "Are you the owner?" And I said, "No." He said, "You sure? Because you look like the owner." And I suppose that whatever it was that he saw in me at the time, it looked like I was the owner, right? And so, at that time, I still didn't know, what I wanted to do. This was like 2008. I was running a restaurant. In fact, I was doing it on my own. I was doing a very good job. The place was always packed jam. The food was good. Like, I always knew in the back of my mind, even working at the restaurant, I had to taste the food, right? So before the food came out of the kitchen, I tasted the food. So I always had the mindset of doing things next level, staying on the cutting edge, and ensuring that I will not succumb to the pressures of not fitting in, not doing well, things like that. I sat home unemployed for months, and one day I said, I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray, and I'm going to ask the Lord, what am I supposed to be doing? And the minute I asked, I immediately got an answer. And he said, open a radio station. Radio station? I said, how in the world am I going to open up a radio station and I have no knowledge? So I said, who do I go to? And he sent me to a lady at a local radio station, and I asked her point blank, what am I going to find out from you? And she said, what is it that you want to know? I said, who does all of your equipment? Who does this? Who does that? And she gave me a name. And she gave me his contact, and I reached out. And then I started to seek the Lord on how am I going to pay for this, right? Because I was home, unemployed, and I had $0 to my name. When I tell you people I had $0, I had $0 to my name, and I had nowhere to find the money. I wasn't home, but I was hungry. I didn't have any money to buy food. It was crazy. And I started praying, and I started fasting, and I was praying more, and I mentioned to my godmother what, and she told a friend of hers, who then said they were going to assist me in prayer to bring this thing to life. Her friend ended up telling her brother, I know this young lady, she wants to open up a radio station. And he said to her, so then I said, I'm going to go. So she told me, and then I decided that I was going to go to the NAB show, that I had no money, right? I had created the business plan. I created the perfect business plan with regards to hers, and but I had no idea on what it was going to cost me. So I started calling all my friends. I called a couple of people, and with much resistance, a friend of mine decided to give me, they paid for a round Vegas and paid for the hotel and the registration and all of that good stuff. And then I got on the plane. As I was coming off the plane, I saw this gentleman in the next row with a Bahamian passport, and I said to him, how can you help me? And he said, what are you here for? And I said, I'm here to open up a radio station. And he took me with him, and he said, okay, here's what you need. And he's a total stranger, right? I only walked up to him because I saw him with a password and tell y'all the fundamental of being an entrepreneur and finding your niche and even being great at what you do. You have to create a boldness, and you have, without a shadow of a doubt, you have to do it no matter how you feel. So if you're scared, you have to do it. You have to push past your fear. You have to push past your insecurity. You have to push past you have to push past it, right? So he sat me down, and this is everything that you need, right? The conference is going on. It's like a 4-day conference, and the exhibits open on the second day. So we sneak inside, right? And I'm talking to the owner of Shively. Like, Shively is one of the biggest companies in radio. Sat me down, and he told me every single thing that I needed to know about radio. I mean, I learned everything that I needed to know on the conference floor at the NAB, and I met every owner of the biggest companies, the biggest audio processor company, the biggest antenna company. I learned on the floor. They told me everything they taught me and told me everything that I needed to know. Armed with that information, I still have no money, right? I still have no money, but I'm excited. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my spirit. I feel it. I just feel it. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to go and open up a radio station, right? And what do? I go home with this information, and I in all of my numbers, and I finish my business plan. And then I began to pray some more. I remember I would pray for hours at a time, just asking God to bring it to life. I literally presented my business plan to the Lord. Like, I said, okay, I am finished, right? There was nothing else that I could do to the business plan to make it right. He gave me the entire blueprint, how he wanted it, who he wanted me to hire at the time. It all came, I should say, line by line, precept by precept, exactly how he wanted me to do it. And I then began to formulate this plan, right? I then began to say, this is what I am going to do. And I remember, with all the weeks and months of praying, so I got the vision in 2009, and I went to the NAB in 2010. It was like April 2010, and November 11th, 2011 is when we went on the air and we tested, and everything was perfect. What happened between April 2010 to November 2011? You have to tune in to the next episode of Evolve the Podcast, where I tell you tips and tricks and my story about how I started a company at age 36 and still going. So tune in to the next episode, which I will drop every week. Thank you for listening, and evolve. Tune in to the Evolve Podcast this and every week as I dive into all of the things that made my business successful.